Are you considering getting online using 3 5G broadband? In this video, we've reviewed 3 5G home broadband to see if it's worth buying. We have extensive experience reviewing 3's 5G internet service, and in this video, we reviewed it based on its speeds, latency, Wi-Fi performance, value for money, and more. But before we get started, make sure to click the first link in the description to come to the home broadband coverage checker on the 3 website. Here, you can put in your postcode to see if you can get their 5G broadband service at your address, and you can also see what prices they're currently offering to see if their 5G broadband deals are good value at the moment. So 3 5G broadband works a bit differently to the fibre connections you might be used to using. When you buy 5G broadband from 3, you get their 5G router paired with an unlimited data SIM card. Unlike a normal broadband router, this device doesn't plug into your phone socket or a fibre broadband port. Instead, it just takes the SIM card and connects to the internet using the 5G network, just like your phone. But apart from that, this router is just like any other Wi-Fi router you might use. It still creates a hotspot you can get online with, and it has parental controls and other settings, just like most other broadband routers. So when you come to the 3 website, they'll check that you can get good 5G signal on their network at your address. Then you can buy the 5G hub on a 24-month contract. But unlike a regular broadband deal, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can test the router and see what the speeds are like before you commit for the full contract. It's easy to send the router back if you're not happy with the speeds. So getting set up with the 3 5G hub is pretty straightforward. Basically, all you do is take the SIM card, punch it out of its little punch-out card, and then put it into the router. It goes in cut corner first, and it'll click into place when it's in the right position. Then you just plug the router in. There's no need to connect it to your landline or broadband port. Then you just wait a few minutes for it to set itself up. It'll connect to 5G, and then it'll create a Wi-Fi hotspot you can get online with. This process took us about 15 minutes in total. It's really easy, even if you're not particularly tech savvy, and it's much easier than getting set up with most fibre broadband providers. You don't need to have an engineer come over to help you get set up. There is one extra step though. It's a good idea to try the router in different positions to see where you get the best speeds. Normally, the best place is an upstairs windowsill, or somewhere else high up on the edge of the house, but you won't know immediately which windowsill or other area has the best 5G signal. So it's worth putting your 5G hub in a few different spots to see where you get the best download and upload speeds. One of 3 5G broadband's biggest strengths is its value for money. 3 normally charges about £20 to £24 a month for their 5G broadband service, including the router and an unlimited data SIM, basically everything you need to get online, and there's no upfront fee either. As we'll discuss later in the video, the speeds offered by this service are pretty fast, so given the monthly cost 3's charging, we think their home broadband product is pretty good value for money. If you paid a similar amount of money per month to BT, EE or PlusNet, you'd only get speeds about a third as fast. So what sort of download and upload speeds should you expect with 3 5G broadband? The answer is, it depends on the 5G signal at your address. That's why 3 offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can see what the speeds are like before you commit to using this router. So 3 advertises an average download speed of 150 megabits per second. In our experience, under ideal conditions, we were able to get a bit more than 700 megabits per second, and 300 to 500 was pretty typical. The upload speeds were not as impressive, but still usable for most situations, hovering around that 8 to 9 megabit per second range, although they sometimes did peak quite a bit higher than this. So we think you can expect download speeds of 150 to 300 megabits per second on the low end, potentially going up to 500 or even higher if you have really good 5G signal from 3 where you live. Remember, click the link to the 3 website in the description and put in your postcode on their coverage checker to see if you can get good 3 5G signal at your address. Ultimately, we're pretty impressed with the speeds you can get with 3 5G broadband. Even at 150 or so megabits per second, this is plenty for most families. Even if you're watching high definition or 4K video on multiple devices at the same time, you shouldn't experience any buffering with these sorts of speeds. We were pretty impressed with the Wi-Fi performance of the 5G hub. There's a few different routers that 3 tends to include when you buy 5G broadband from them. This one here is the Zyxel NR5103E, but they also include a ZTE MC888 sometimes as well. We've tested both of these routers and found that the Wi-Fi is pretty similar between them. They both offer Wi-Fi 6, which is a fairly modern Wi-Fi standard. We tested these routers in a 4-bedroom house and had no issues getting Wi-Fi, even in the back garden, although our speeds did drop off a bit once we went downstairs away from the router, on the opposite side of the house to where we put it, but it still offered plenty of speed for streaming video, using Zoom and downloading large files in all corners of the house. This is another thing where you might want to experiment a bit with the positioning of the router. You want to find a good balance between allowing the router to pick up good 5G signal and allowing it to broadcast a strong Wi-Fi signal to the most important places of the house to get the best speeds overall in different areas. So one of the downsides of wireless broadband is the latency isn't quite as low as using fiber. Latency is basically a measure of how responsive your connection is when sending very small packets of data. This is most important when gaming. If your latency is really high, meaning your connection isn't very responsive, you'll experience a lot of lag, and some online games might be quite difficult to play. So with fiber broadband, you can normally expect a latency of about 10 to 20 milliseconds. With the 5G hub, we normally got about 35 to 40. This is pretty good. Normally, you can expect lag to really kick in at about 70 to 100 milliseconds. For most games, 30 to 40 is fine. And we confirmed this by playing a lot of Rocket League, as well as a few different first-person shooters on the 5G hub. We used an Ethernet connection to the router to ensure we got the lowest possible latency. Normally, it's a bit higher over Wi-Fi. And when we did this, we didn't notice any lag spikes, and our experience was pretty smooth. Games were very playable, and we never noticed any issues with it. So we think 5G broadband is good for gaming, with 2 caveats. Firstly, you should really plug into the router directly with an Ethernet cable if you can, if you're playing ping-sensitive games. Things like EAFC, Fortnite, Battlefield, and Call of Duty are completely fine, especially if you plug into the router. And it's the same story with wireless games, like Animal Crossing, or basically anything else you play on a Nintendo Switch or on your phone. The other caveat is that you're not playing extremely ping-sensitive, competitive games, like Counter-Strike is the one that springs to mind. That's the sort of thing where every single millisecond counts, and having a ping of around 40 milliseconds compared to 10 can make a bit of a difference. But for 95% of gamers, 5G broadband performs really well. 5G broadband isn't perfect, but we think it's definitely worth trying if you can get their 5G broadband service at your address. It's very easy to set up, offers really good value for money, and comes with very fast download speeds. The only real issue is the latency is a bit high for very competitive gaming, but for most gamers it's absolutely fine. And if you're not sure, you can always try the router and send it back within 30 days if the speeds or latency aren't as good as you thought they'd be. Remember, click the link in the description to come to the 5G broadband page on the 3 website and put in your postcode to see if you can get their 5G broadband service where you live. And if you have any questions about 5G broadband, leave us a comment below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.